I am not gay. I have relationships with women and sex with men.
And I got news for you. That means you're gay.
I'm retarded?
Fuck your couch, nigga. Buy another one, you rich motherfucker. Fuck your couch, nigga. Fuck your couch. Darkness is.
What the hell kind of cop are you?
You know what I am? I'm your worst fucking nightmare, man. I'm a nigga with a badge. That means I got permission to kick your fucking ass whenever I feel like it.
That's tomorrow, and that is it for us today. And we will leave you with a... I can't do it. Okay. We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it, and we'll do it live. Right. Fucking thing sucks.
Wow, you gotta watch A Sip of Cinema, bro.
Nah, it's bloody shit, mate. Don't watch.
Hadouken! 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And welcome another episode of A Sip of Cinema. Only on SCTV. That means Scene Commando TV. That's my channel. Hopefully we can get some guests. Actually, I was thinking about this during the week. Or the 2 weeks since we had a show. Is the possibility of guests. Wait, my mic is super high. Like the possibility of guests, you know. And it's good to do it as a duo, but you know, you see other shows on YouTube, they always have a guest or whatever. So yeah, that'd be good. All right.
Like who would you have in mind as a guest?
I don't know. We should get
randoms.
the main star of whatever movie we're discussing. Obviously. Wait, I'm just getting IMDb of Robocop. Should do this prior to the show, but I'm doing it live. We're doing it live. I'm just getting the cast up, just in case it comes up. But anyway, as usual, for every start of the Super Cinema, we have the booze and the toast to the film. Actually, we should say the pour. Let's have the pour first. So I've got a wonderful drink, as do you. I never know where to put this stuff so people can see. But I got the Ardbeg pen.
The Ardbeg.
I've got the heavy hitter. The heavy hitter for this movie. Okay, so we're doing the pour. Oh, it's a healthy pour. Oh boy, that's going to be a good show.
I've got the Bad Shepherd's peanut butter porter. One of my favorite. Could be my all-time favorite porter.
Oh boy, yeah, we've got to do that. That taste comparison between the Ardbeg 10 Lagavulin 16 and the Port Charlotte 10. Interesting. Anyway, a toast to Robocop, released in 1987, directed by Paul Verhoeven. Introduced us to another toxic Avenger, aside from the one that we watched when we were much too young. Get to that later. But yeah, a toast to a wonderful action movie, another action movie that sort of shaped our childhoods as well, to Robocop.
Cheers.
It's a campfire in my mouth, and everyone's invited. All right, Robocop. So, what was your impressions of Robocop as a kid?
No, it's definitely one of my all-time favorite characters. I think as a kid, I was a kind of fan of robots, good robots like Astro Boy, Mega Man, Transformers, and stuff. And I think in the 80s, robots kind of got a bad rap, like with Terminator and stuff. They're usually evil, malfunctioning, and going on like murderous rampages and stuff. And like Robocop was like he embodied justice. He was like a good guy, and he's a robot. Oh, he's a cyborg. So yeah,
it's interesting you say that, because like what you mentioned, like the Terminator, Cyberdyne Systems, Robocop, OCP, like there's always some sort of nefarious or evil corporation behind the technology that leads them to be evil. So it's something that I'll discuss later on for Robocop in terms of OCP as a corporation, which I think is really interesting. It's something that I didn't really pick up on as a kid, obviously. But there's lots of different, it's a satire, it's a drama, it's a human drama. It's sort of a psychological film, as well as a bit of an action film. People tend to lump films like Robocop into the action category, but ultimately there's many different aspects to it. And to me, Robocop embodies actually two characters. Like you have the transhumanist, sort of the cybernetic form of Robocop, and then you have Murphy. You have Alex J. Murphy, as he's called, who sort of comes out later on during the unmasking, which is symbolic in itself and something that we'll discuss later on. But it is a many-layered film, far more deep than one may think, which is sort of a common theme in our shows so far. A lot of these movies are sort of lumped into certain categories, but when you look beneath the surface, especially with the characters and the way the characters are written, it's actually very, very complex and really interesting in terms, especially in Robocop, in terms of asking questions about the nature of humanity and things like that. So
it's such a cool concept as well, Robocop, like his story and things like that. Just the way that his story is told. It's a cool idea, especially for when we were kids.
Yeah. From a child's perspective, it sort of taps into all those aspects of fantasy and, I guess, cybernetics. We used to watch Robotech, for example, and of course you had Transformers. And I suppose something that's similar to Robocop would be something like Centurions, who had suits with different attachments, which is pretty cool. And also Mask. You remember Mask? That was also like something similar along those lines, although they didn't sort of.
They were kind of more like G.I. Joe, I think.
Yeah, they're sort of in between. Yeah. But for me, like it sort of connected all those different types of, I guess, how would you put this? Like styles of character, sort of fantasy style or action style. But Robocop is obviously more of an adult interpretation of those concepts. I'm sort of watching it uncut. I don't think we saw it uncut as kids. Do you remember if we did?
I don't think so. Watching it again, there was some of the scenes like Murphy's death, Kinney, one of the staff members, for OCP.
Yeah.
Yeah, he gets yeah. I was kind of surprised with the level of gore and of his death. Yeah, that's pretty crazy watching it again.
Yeah, it would be interesting to go through the film as we do and sort of bring up some of the gore, and because you're right, like I don't think I saw Murphy's death in full until much later. Yeah, I don't think, like, even as a edited version, it was still extremely traumatic.
Yeah,
I mean, to
definitely.
see that.
It's kind of there is scenes that's very uneasy, especially as a kid experience. Like for me, like remembering Ed 209, I was scared shitless of Ed 209. I just thought he was.
I know.
He was just like a lunatic robot. It's crazy.
All right, we better get into it because we're actually talking about the movie without making any progress. So we'll save all these points as we discuss the film, because some good. Yeah, as you're talking, I'm coming up with 20 new things that I want to talk about. But all right, so Robocop opens with a flyover shot of Detroit. So we have Detroit City in the future. Do you remember what year it is? I didn't make a note of what year it was.
I think it was 2028 or 2027, something like that.
Something like that. 2020.
Yeah.
Really, 2028. Actually, I'm going to look this up. Yeah. Robocop 1987. Let's say 2043.
2043.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which is interesting.
Mm.
So that's basically 20 years from now. I mean, why not? That's all I can say about that. Why not? We're halfway there. Yeah, I'm going to go off on a tangent if I don't stop. But so it fades into a news program, and their tagline is "Give us 3 minutes, and we'll give you the world," which is interesting. And they report on a neutron bomb in South Africa, which is pretty random.
Yeah.
Like I think there was like violence in Pretoria or something.
It's a threat of nuclear war or something.
Yeah, threat of nuclear war, and someone's like got a neutron bomb. It's like pretty full on. Like there's pretty full on news reports from that news station. But Paul Verhoeven sort of weaves in different commercial breaks, different TV shows. Oh, not different TV shows, one TV show, and the news reports just to like fill in the gaps for the type of world that exists in 2043, which is part of the satire. And in 2022, I didn't see much difference between the state of the media as satirized in Robocop and the way it is now. I think Paul Verhoeven was pretty futuristic, or he was pretty on point about the direction of mainstream media, entertainment, and news as it would stand 30 years later. So it's interesting looking at it in terms of a time machine of what someone like Paul Verhoeven thought the future was going to be like. He probably didn't expect it's going to be so soon that we would have Robocop news media in the 2020s, but here we go. And then, as I said, there's different commercials, and so we have the first commercial we see is from the Family Heart Center, where people can pick out their own heart. And this doctor's talking as if it's like he's a car salesman or something. Like you got like warranties and different parts and different like features for the heart that you can choose. So that's sort of the level of technology. But that's sort of a common theme in Robocop is technological innovation and the speed with which humans have adapted to extreme technological innovation as it pertains to the way in which we can alter our own bodies and body alteration. This concept of transhumanism, sort of elevating beyond our human capacities, our human form, into something more advanced. And that's something that's sort of playing out these days, especially when you consider things like Elon Musk and his Neuralink brain chip technology,
Hmm.
and different thematic elements pertaining to transhumanism in terms of body alteration, changing genders, things like that. They're all sort of leaning towards this concept of transhumanism in the modern world, which is never a good thing because it's against nature. But yeah, that's sort of one aspect of what's one of the main themes of Robocop is this concept of transhumanism as ultimately a negative consequence, has a negative consequence on Murphy and everyone around him.
It really
So,
sets the stage of
yeah,
that kind of world with that the news report and the commercials. So it really gives you an idea what kind of world they live in that dystopian kind of future.
yeah. So it's a technique, it's a film technique that Paul Verhoeven employs, is to just show the audience what's happening in the world instead of just explaining things. It's so much more efficient and interesting to do that. Okay, so so the police officers in the Detroit Police Department have been getting beat up, shot, killed, all over the city in record numbers. It's getting crazy out there. It's hot in the streets, as they say. And in the news report, Dick Jones, a high up CEO, not CEO, he's not CEO. He's like second in command at OCP, Omni Consumer Products. He's not concerned. He's like, oh, it's just part of the job, mate. You're gonna get maimed and shot and dead every now and then. Like, stop being a baby. That's basically what he says. So we're introduced to the corporation OCP. Okay, and I'll talk about OCP a bit later. Otherwise, we'll get stuck in another tangent. And in the news report, we hear that this criminal Clarence Bodica is wanted for the deaths of connected to the deaths of 31 police officers, which is a pretty good effort on his part. So let's talk about Clarence Bodica for a second, because when I was a kid, Clarence Bodica was such an incredible name for a villain. Like, it sounded like a bad guy that you should be afraid of, like a criminal or something.
Mate, Clarence doesn't sound too bad though.
Clarence doesn't sound bad, but then with Bodica,
he kind of ruined the name.
Clarence.
But he's such an evil Nazi scumbag villain. Oh.
Yeah, you can literally laugh like a villain. Like, I'll mention. I'll sort of quote him later. One of his funniest lines later on. I don't want to spoil it, but and then we get a shot where sort of Paul takes us into the precinct. It's really loud. I'd imagine it would stink. I feel like the entire city would stink. Like, apparently New York City stinks now, like in 2022. Like, it's one of the stinkiest cities. I can't imagine what Detroit City would smell like in 2043. And we get introduced to Alex J. Murphy. He's a fresh-faced new cop in Detroit. And everyone's like, what the hell are you doing here? And then someone says, welcome to hell. Welcome to hell. Another common theme in some of these, in Predator, where I talked about hell. Like, we talked about hell being the setting of the film. And now Detroit City, is it perhaps hell as well? And there's officers in the locker room talking about striking over the recent sort of violence that's been happening. And that's just sort of becomes a common theme throughout the film in terms of the officers sort of saying, enough is enough. And then one of the officers that was in critical condition actually dies from the latest attack. And that's sort of probably the last straw for some of these officers who just had enough. And then, the commanding officer comes in and he says, police officers don't strike. You got a duty to do, etc., etc. But from the other officers, you get the impression that it's a lot of risk for very little reward.
Mm.
Like they're spit on the streets. Like they probably get paid garbage wages or whatever. I mean, who knows why they're doing it? They could be doing it for the thrill, you know. Yeah. I'll talk about Alex J. Murphy and his private life later on. And we're introduced to Lewis, Anne Lewis, as she is called, Murphy's partner. She beats up a perp. She has a couple of nice right crosses. And then they go out on their first patrol. And Murphy's like, I like to break in my partners by driving or something like that.
Yeah. he just takes the driver's seat.
And then he has a big smile. He seems like a really good guy. A really friendly guy, Alex J. Murphy. And then one of the first awesome scenes of the entire movie. Like one of the most memorable scenes in the movie. Actually, it's probably one of the most memorable scenes in any movie in the 80s. If you had to make a list, it's probably in the top 10, if not top 5. So we're near the top of the OCP building. And Dick Jones is putting on a display of the new ED-209 series. Something defense. Enhanced defense series or something.
I didn't look it up.
No, he says it. I think it's enhanced defense. So the ED-209 model. So there's going to be a huge demonstration. Dick Jones is planning on impressing the old man, like the CEO of the company, and sort of ensuring, he gets all these different military contracts and stuff like that. And of course, it would increase his power and influence within the company as well. Okay. Everyone's there. Everyone's going to see the new ED-209 in full force, in action. And then one of Bob Morton's friends, he says, oh yeah, by the way, the 209 series has had some problems during the R&D phase. Like as they were developing it, they had problems. And that's sort of like a foreshadowing of what's to come. And we're introduced to Bob Morton. You remember Bob, young Bob, the asshole.
Yeah.
He's a true, like that word should be his middle name, basically. So Bob's the new blood of the company, new exec, young executive, hotshot executive, whatever you want to call it. He wants to climb the corporate ladder, and he's willing to step on dead bodies to get to reach his goal, basically. Okay, so when Dick starts making his presentation, we learn that OCP is a gigantic mega corporation that has contracts in various different areas in society. And it suggests that policing is no longer in the hands of local government, but it's in the hands of corporations. Okay, as implication. What is that?
And they're looking to build a Delta City, like
That's right.
Some massive, huge, like crime-free city in the future. And I guess ED-209 is going to be going to help that dream come along.
Yeah. So bear that in mind. Okay. So the Delta City is supposed to be this crime-free city, but as we'll get to later in a scene between Dick and Boudica, that may not actually be the case. Okay. Because there's more to it than meets the eye. But the goal is to build Delta City on the ruins of old Detroit, to bring life back to the city again. And to me, this is reminiscent of the smart cities that's being built around the world. So a smart city is where everybody is controlled and tracked and traced and monitored on a 24-hour basis. Resources are sort of distributed according to need, according to a centralized government or, I guess, corporation in this case. So that's so that's how this is springing up around the world. You can look at Saudi Arabia. They're already building their smart cities. China's already had surveillance cities, and similarly with social credit systems, different smart city features. So that type of technology, the globalists, the WEF, they're sort of trying to perpetuate that around the world, around the West especially. And we saw different forms of monitoring and tracing through technology and through the interaction between the government and different corporations such as Google, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, different social media corporations and companies. And what happens when the government and corporations get into bed together? That's right, it's called fascism. So that's sort of what's happening here. So if corporations rule everything, that means the people don't have any power. They can't vote, or they can't sort of use any sort of legal means to get the people out of power, because the people in power are corporations. So ED209 is OCP's plan to help the struggling police department, and we find out that OCP has their paws in different areas of society. So they control military, technological innovation, space exploration, energy, hospitals, even. So to me, that's sort of representative of this dystopian future, this corporate dystopian future or technocracy, where sort of you have the upper elite at the top, and then just the plebes at the bottom, just living to serve the elites at the top, basically the technocracy. And then you have business interests controlling key areas of society, including infrastructure, innovation, and law enforcement. So all encompassing, basically. And then Dick talks about how the best form of law enforcement is some sort of technological innovation that supersedes humanity in some way. Okay. So again, superseding humanity, this common theme of transhumanism. Okay. Even though Ed 209 is sort of just this military grade technology, this concept of superseding humanity's limits is sort of a thing in transhumanism. And now, what you've all been waiting for.
Ed 209. The enforcement.
So it's tempting to show the entire scene with the countdown and stuff, but I don't know, it's always tricky to figure out, how much of the scene I should show, but I guess we can just talk about it. So what's your impressions of that scene?
I guess we get introduced to Ed 209, the future of law enforcement, and he malfunctions. He kind of turns Kinney into lasagna. It's a very memorable scene, probably the most memorable scene in Robocop, maybe.
Probably, yeah, I would agree. But we're introduced to the level of violence in gunshots in Robocop, which, like, I'm trying to think of another movie that has a level of like that kind of destructive power from bullets as we see in Robocop. Like, there'll be a shot and then the leg would like blow up. There'll be this gigantic chunk of flesh that flies off, like, no matter what the gun is. And especially with 209, when he shoots that guy, like his body just, as you said, becomes lasagna or dog food. It's just like,
so, like, watching it again, it was so overkill. It's like he's like laying down on the model of Delta City. He's still like pumping him full of like, that's just crazy. Yeah, that wasn't in the original version we saw, the edited version.
No, for sure.
No, he just took a few bullets and fell over, and they cut that. That was done.
But yeah, exactly, because they show him on the table as he's like getting shot, and it's just like over the top violence, like it's crazy. But one thing that stood out to me in terms of 209 is the sounds that thing makes. So if you just listen to it, it's like animal sounds, right?
Yeah,
it's like a lion or a tiger or something. Really intimidating. He growls. I mean, we could talk at length about the ridiculousness of having like those kinds of, I guess, directives for that robot. You know what I mean? Like, if a guy waves a gun at it, it's got 20 seconds. Otherwise, it's going to blow the guy away. Like, why would you like? There's no like restraining. Like you can't restrain the criminal. Like, you just have to blow him away. You know.
But he's not built for like I guess city criminals. He's more military.
He's military.
Like Dick says, like he's got contracts with the military with Air 209 and stuff, and
yeah, he wants like military contracts.
He's like he's just overkill for just like city police forcing.
And the most obvious like weird feature of that scene is the fact that there's live ammo. It's like live ammunition in the demonstration. It's like they loaded him up arm to the teeth, like for the demonstration. It's like, what? Like you can't just have like an empty chamber for the demonstration. Like that was wild. But I guess that represents like the lack of regard for human life back then. Like, or not back then, but in that world. I don't know. It just makes it more spectacular, I guess. Because you can imagine these people like doing that type of thing, because there's so much like callousness and inhumanity throughout the movie from different characters. So there's not many good-hearted people, obviously. Like obviously you got Murphy and Lewis, but you know, not many else aside from that. Which is sort of a reflection of the time or the city itself. And so the old man is angry with Dick Jones, but Bob swoops in to promote his project, Security Concepts project, which is Robocop. And he plans to replace the 209 project with his project. And then Lewis and Murphy are sort of getting a coffee, and Murphy talks about his son likes this guy called, what's his name, TJ Laser, who flips his gun. And then they get a call for a robbery by Body Crew and his goons, and they have to go down. They follow the goons to the industrial area, the steel mill, the abandoned steel mill.
You missed one of Clarence's funny lines. When Bobby he gets shot in the leg, he's like, "Oh shit, Clarence, my leg!" And then Clarence he's like, "Can you fly, Bobby?" And he throws him on the cop car, and they get it.
Yeah, I should mention that, shouldn't I? Yeah, they have like a gunfight on the freeway, and then wait, oh, I did write that down. No, I did. Yeah, I did. I just I was about to get to that. So yeah, so Clarence is like beating up Emil, telling him to go faster. Like literally like beating him as he's driving. Yeah, and then there's like and it's, "Can you fly, Bobby?" And then Murphy phones it in. It's like backup's 15 minutes away. And they try to take out the van, and the gunfight ensues. Yeah, and then I said Clarence tosses Bobby onto the cop car to slow them down, and it works. And then soon after that, they realize backup is not coming. So Murphy and Lewis go into the old factory by themselves with their pea shooters. Yeah, it's not a great idea when cops go in without backup. We learned that in many different movies over the years. You don't want to be going in by yourself, especially if a bunch of literally psychopathic goons.
And they're literally armed to the teeth, shotguns, lots of shotguns. I remember.
Yeah, they're like the shotgun team. And then we see first time we get to see the show. I'll buy that for $1. So Emil and another goon is watching that goofy TV show. I don't know. To me, it's pretty funny whenever he says, "I'll buy that for $1."
Yeah, that was funny. Like when we were little, we didn't understand what was going on. I'm not sure what that's supposed to be based on or what he's doing.
I know what. I think
is he kind of like a Hugh Hefner with these like young women?
No. So there's a couple of things. So first of all, Verhoeven based him. I think Verhoeven based him on Benny Hill. So that's the starting point.
Yeah.
But then I think Verhoeven foresaw like the degradation of society through culture. And so that show is like a representation of what we would call reality TV or whatever sort of branch of reality TV where it's just like brainless, nonsensical, like destroying brain cells type of TV show that's on these days. Like just the dumbest TV show imaginable.
Like it appears to be all that Emil watches. Like you see in a number of things, he's just watching the show.
Yeah, that's true. Like when they're like rampaging through the city.
And the mum and pop store as well. They're watching the show as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Which sort of represents the degradation of society, the lack of intellectual curiosity or and intellectual development of society. It's sort of similar to Idiocracy. If you remember that, what's his name? What's Owen Wilson's brother's name? Luke Wilson. The Luke Wilson film, Idiocracy, by Mike Judge, where it's sort of basically a documentary of today. Because everyone's really dumb. There's all these ridiculous dumb stuff that actually came true. I gotta watch that sometime. Okay, what am I up to? Okay, so we're up to the steel mill, and Murphy and Lewis go in. So they sort of split up, and then Lewis happens upon the black guy, and he's pissing, and then he like turns around and doesn't zip up, and she gets distracted, and then gets slapped, which is pretty good. I mean, he could have done a lot worse.
Yeah, he thought that he killed her though. Like she fell off from a high height.
Actually, I missed something. Or did I? No, I didn't miss it. No, I'm up to that.
I think you're good. Yeah.
Yeah, we're good. So, because there's a really important line that I want to say. So, Murphy happens upon Emil, who I'm going to name the Toxic Avenger from now on. So, Murphy tries to apprehend the Toxic Avenger and another goon. But does he shoot the other goon?
Yeah, he does. He blows him away.
So he shoots the goon and tries to arrest the Toxic Avenger. And he says, "Dead or alive, you're coming with me," which is a line that comes up later in the film. And sort of gives him away to the Toxic Avenger later on. But then as he tries to apprehend the Toxic Avenger, he gets surprised by the other goons who are all armed with shotguns, as you said. But then Boudica has to have some fun with Murphy before he kills him, of course, because it's Clarence Boudica. What do you expect?
You probably don't think I'm a very nice guy, do you?
Buddy, I think you're slime.
Buddy, I think you're slime. I like his goons. I think his goons would be a lot of fun to hang out with if they weren't, psychotic. Buddy, I think you're slime. So obviously I cut it there because I don't want, Murphy's dismemberment on my channel. Everyone can look that up if they want to see that. But yeah, let's talk about this scene. So this is like if I had to rank it, probably the top 5 most disturbing scenes from my childhood from any film. Even though, as I said, we didn't see the whole thing. Okay. Even the edited version was really terrifying, and I think it's because
I think it's mine most disturbing.
I think it's because he was trapped. He was trapped with lots of men with shotguns, and that sort of concept is really terrifying.
No, it's definitely my most traumatic scene as a kid. I remember, and that was. I think so. Yeah, I'd say so.
Interesting.
Yeah, and watching it again, like recently, that was really messed up. That was some crazy shit.
It's sort of torture.
Yeah, it's torture, and like they blow him away, and he's still alive.
Yeah,
and then like kind of Clarence like put him out of his misery, like in the end.
But not really, because he's still alive.
Yeah,
because he was still alive when he got to the hospital. And they tried to bring him back, but he flatlined. Yeah, so they rush him to the hospital, but he flatlines, and they call it Murphy's declared dead, which is really convenient for security concepts. Bob Morton and his project, because they can just use his body without his permission. As they mentioned later on, they can just do whatever they want to him. And then interesting sort of creative choice from Verhoeven. We see the technician's lab from the perspective of Robocop, and so we see different views from his perspective as they sort of work on his visual element, his visual components.
That was a cool concept. It was interesting to see it from his perspective, but at the same time, I kind of want to see like what was left of him. Like in the 2014 remake of Robocop, they show that. Like they show like he's just like a head and an arm and just lungs and heart. And like that was really messed up. That was really confronting scene.
Well,
that was crazy.
Well, if you recall Robocop 2, and we see what's his name? Damn it. I can't believe I forgot his name. Robocop 2. I watched this fairly recently too. I forgot his name.
Kane. Was it Kane?
Kane.
Robocop 2. He was just a brain and a spine.
Kane.
And I think eyeballs.
Yeah, he was eyeballs and like a brainstem and like a spinal cord.
Yeah.
I really like Robocop 2. I don't want to get off on a tangent on that, but to me, like the most terrifying scene was when the kid was in the Brinks truck, like the money van or whatever, and like Kane, the Robocop Kane comes up and like destroys him. Like he sneaks up on him, and like you can hear the Kane, Robocop Kane, like outside the van, and that's really terrifying. Yeah, Robocop Kane is really terrifying.
Yeah, it's like the sounds that he made when he walked, and he was fast as well, and
like his claw thing.
Yeah, that's crazy. That'll be another video.
Yeah, that might be another video. Yeah, and so we sort of see the development of Robocop through his perspective, and we hear different aspects of his design. He eats baby food basically to maintain his organic system, and when it comes out the machine, it literally looks like poop because it's literally the same color as poop. Like it's still like Verhoeven made it, deliberately made it as disgusting as possible. And we learned that is being programmed with 4 prime directives, but at this stage of the film, we just think it's 3 prime directives. Right. So initially, it served the public trust, protect the innocent, uphold the law, and then the hidden directive is that he can't arrest a senior officer of OCP, otherwise he'll be shut down automatically. And so Robocop's getting a lot of attention at the precincts because He's got a machine gun pistol.
That was awesome. Hand cannon.
The gigantic machine gun
like
pistol.
a burst fire machine gun, and he like pulses it inside his leg. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was really cool as a kid to see that sort of stuff, like this stuff.
Shit. This guy is really good.
He's not a guy, he's a machine.
What are they gonna do, replace us?
Yeah, so we get the leg holster, but then we also see a really interesting expression from Lewis, who sort of has that expression like, that looks familiar when he does the gun flip. So yeah, so we get the impression that Lewis is sort of clued into what's going on. She knows something is fishy with this Robocop character because Murphy died recently, or supposedly died. And then Robocop goes out on his first patrol, and first time we hear the Robocop theme, which is really cool. One of the best themes, I think.
Very memorable theme.
Very memorable theme, yeah. Really industrial and heavy, a really, really good futuristic theme. And then we see Robocop sort of foiling some bad guys on his first patrol. So, as you said, he goes to the convenience store and foils a robbery.
Did you see the guy that was robbing the mom and pop store? You see what comic he picked up to throw on the table?
I didn't see that.
It's an Iron Man comic.
Oh, was it? Oh, Iron Man, cool. I didn't notice that. But yeah, so Robocop sort of beats up the guy and destroys part of the shop and just leaves. Listen, there's a couple of things in this movie where it's like, wait, is that what would happen? But yeah, Robocop just like beats up the guy and leaves, destroying some product. Destroying part of the display or the fridge or whatever, but and then there's a woman who's being harassed by a couple of guys who think it's really fun to cut off a girl's hair with a knife. So that's basically what they're doing. And then one of the criminals takes the girl hostage, and then Robocop shoots him in the balls through her skirt. Because he's got ultimate aim, which is pretty cool.
Aim assist.
He's got aim assist. He's got Zelina aim assist.
Cronus,
yeah. And then he goes to a hostage situation at City Hall, and then sort of breaks through the wall, and then rescues the hostages, I should say. And then we got a couple of scenes of him visiting kids. He's sort of doing the PR campaign, spreading the word about Robocop and the project, how he's going to change the city, etc., etc. And we get a really funny board game called Nukem. I guess the aim is to nuke other countries. And you play like a country or whatever, then you can destroy other countries.
It was like Battleship, but
yeah, like
countries and nukes.
Yeah, if you grew up in the 80s, you know about Battleship. And then there was Electronic Battleship, was really awesome.
Yeah, we had an electronic Battleship.
Yeah, and the sound effects and stuff.
You sunk my aircraft carrier.
You sunk my aircraft carrier. So Bob's moving up the ladder at the company. He starts talking shit about Jones in the men's room. It's a really funny scene in the men's room. Everyone starts leaving and pissing on themselves because Jones is taking a dump. And then sort of Jones sort of threatens Bob and sort of warns him not to cross him, but Bob's too cocky, too arrogant to sort of be worried about Dick Jones. So
Yeah, Morton wasn't threatened at all by
At
him.
all.
At all.
At
And you
all.
find out consequences later.
Yeah, because Dick Jones has connections.
That
He's like
nobody knows.
he's a real criminal. like
He's a good bad guy as well.
he's a really good bad guy, yeah. But he's got the connections as corporate leaders would have. And the next scene we see Robocop is agitated because he's getting all these memories.
Goddamn rebels blew up the airport of Acapulco yesterday.
Great. We were going there next week. Hey, what was that?
Yeah, so he's sort of suffering from a bit of PTSD. So they were supposed to erase his memory, but I guess it didn't work 100%. It didn't work 100% because he sort of starts remembering different things, different flashes of the past, and especially this traumatic event where he was supposedly murdered. And so he leaves the precinct. From the audience perspective, it seems like he's on a hunt for answers or revenge, perhaps. And then Lewis sees him in the hall and sort of introduces himself and tries to get him to remember, who he was before. And actually calls him Murphy in order to trigger his memory. But then Bob comes flying into the precinct, swearing at people, causing a ruckus, and starts questioning Lewis, but Lewis doesn't know anything. And then he sort of implies that OCP is above the police force, above the law, above like just petty police issues. So like the commanding officer doesn't have any power to sort of stop Bob or to question him about anything. And we get a pretty funny scene where the Toxic Avenger tries to rob a gas station. the gas station guy. You go to college, or something. You're a college guy or something. Like studying plane geometry, like this nerd. and
you think you're pretty smart, don't you? You think you're smart enough to dodge a bullet?
I think he's got a Uzi.
Yeah, I think so.
Uzi in his hand. It's about to go off at any moment. But he gets some free petrol and some free money because goons don't pay for anything in this town, apparently. But then Robocop comes in, tries to save the day, but then Toxic Avenger actually recognizes him as Murphy because Robocop says, "Dead or alive, you're coming with me," just like earlier in the movie. And then Toxic Avenger keeps saying, we killed you, over and over again. And sort of Robocop's like malfunctions mentally. And then the Toxic Avenger like blows up the gas station.
Yeah, like
because
Robocop pauses. Robocop pauses and he's kind of stuck, probably recalling a memory or something, and immediately like he takes one last drag. Like he's like time. He's like I don't know why he doesn't get out of there sooner, but he takes one last drag and like he throws it at Robocop's feet or into the puddle of petrol, and then he tries to escape. Yeah, I thought that was really funny. Watching that again, I was cacking myself.
Yeah, some of these scenes are pretty funny, but he like rides away in his motorcycle, and the Robocop sort of comes to his senses and then shoots his wheel, and then Toxic Avenger has this crazy accident. Like, I don't know if you noticed, like the accident, like he should be dead or either like severely injured from that accident. Like he runs into the car and like goes flying, like smashes into the concrete. It's like he should have serious injuries.
Got some scratches on his head.
Yeah,
that's about it.
And then so Robocop tries to question the Toxic Avenger, but the Toxic Avenger like falls unconscious, as you would be if not dead from that kind of accident. The back Robocop goes back to the precinct to the data storage area, and they designed his USB stick to be in the shape of a spike, don't they? So it's got this gigantic spike that protrudes from his fist, and it's like a USB USB stick, basically. But back then we didn't know what a USB stick was. But now I'm thinking, oh, it is a USB stick. Like it acts just like a USB stick, or some sort of like data retrieval device, or interface. And sort of with at the central computer area at the precinct, he sort of looks for the image of the Toxic Avenger in the database, and he sees that this particular criminal has been associated with the death of Alex J. Murphy, and he sees Alex Murphy as deceased. And that sort of brings back more memories, and he goes to his family home, and it's deserted, but with each room that he goes into, sparks new memories. He sees his wife, sees his kid in different rooms. And as he sort of walks through the home, he gets sort of more and more agitated. Then he punches a real estate video.
Yeah, it's interesting how he's supposed to be like machine, but he starts experiencing emotions and stuff now as well.
Yeah, so they designed him to sort of erase his humanity, but he sort of gradually gets it back as the film progresses. But I don't know if you notice like the architecture of some of these homes in this movie, like Bob's home, Alex's home. Like they're really disgusting looking in terms of their architecture and decoration, but like Alex is a really nice house. Like aside from anything else, like it's really, really nice house. Like I don't know how much like what work he did before he worked for like the Detroit Police Department, but it was a really, really nice house.
Maybe they are getting paid well. It's just that the conditions are really bad.
No, but he just moved. Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. You never know how long he's been living around that area. So, but yeah, you can see all the like the 80s style of decoration and architecture is really disgusting. Especially with Bob, and we'll get to Bob soon. And so Robocop goes to a nightclub, and he questions who's this guy? I've got this guy's name, Leon. So he questions Leon in the nightclub. Yeah, and he's sort of asking Leon where Clarence is, etc., as you would. And then we switch to Bobby, Bobby Morton, doing rails at his mansion with two girls.
Prostitutes.
Are they prostitutes? Are they? Or maybe they. Yeah. I don't know. I couldn't ascertain whether or not they're prostitutes. They were hoes or whatever. I thought they were just like two girls from The Office. I don't know. They're like dressed up or whatever. They look like executives. I don't know. Maybe that was just the 80s. And guess who's at the door? It's his best friend, Clarence Bodica. And he comes in, bitches leave.
Bitches leave.
Bitches leave. It's just two words, and it's so funny. And then again, like I was saying before, like the gun violence in this movie, where he shoots Bob's legs, and it's just like looks like his legs are just destroyed.
He shoots him in the legs.
Yeah,
I gotta say Bob Morton's security is pretty lax. So he didn't even see him or anything. He just opened the door, let him in, and let him shoot him.
I would say it's non-existent. Pretty lax. You would think Bob would like have all kinds of security, especially after Dick Jones like threatened him, and the state of Detroit, at the time in terms of the crime. Like you would think.
You'd think so, but he must be in an area where he's like where he's comfortable and safe, where he doesn't have to think about these things.
I think it's similar to like a gated community or something. Like if you live in
Yeah.
a gated community, you're pretty much relying on the security within that tiny, tiny exclusive area. So like you probably wouldn't need, 20-foot walls around your house. So I thought this is really I thought this is really interesting scene in terms of having Bob interact with Boudica and showing Boudica's like casual. Well, it's not so much that, it's sort of showing how Boudica and Dick Jones sort of work together as this criminal organization.
Hello, buddy boy. Dick Jones here. I guess you're on your knees about now, begging for your life. Pathetic. You don't feel so cocky now, do you, Bob?
Whatever he's paying you, I'll double it right now.
You know what the tragedy is here, Bob? We could have been friends. But you wouldn't go through proper channels. You went over my head. That hurt. But life goes on. It's an old story. The fight for love and glory, huh, Bob? It helps if you think of it as a game, Bob. Every game has a winner and a loser.
Yeah. So it's a really interesting acting moment as well for Boudica. Doesn't really say anything. Like takes the grenade pin off with his teeth. This is a nice touch. But yeah. Also some interesting directorial choices in terms of close up on Dick Jones's face at certain points, and interspersing that with Boudica's sort of silent and very slow and deliberate dismantling of the grenade as he places it gently on the table. So yeah, it's a really interesting scene. But yeah, Bob's not so cocky now, is he? And then we see Boudica negotiating like with another drug dealer in the area. Sort of reminds me like of a drug dealer from like a Guy Ritchie movie or something. Like I expect him to have like an English accent.
Oh, yeah.
He seems like that type of guy. Yeah, I watched
it does exude that kind of feeling.
Yeah. I watched Lock, Stock a couple of months ago. Really awesome movie.
I haven't watched that for a while. I remember it being really.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think I have to watch Snatch. I don't think I'll watch that yet with Brad Pitt.
Snatch.
Snatch is another Guy Ritchie like mobster English movie, so I have to watch it. And the Boudica's like really rude to the drug dealer because he knows he has OCP in his pocket. And the Robocop like breaks down the door of the Coke factory because they have a meeting in the Coke factory, of course. The Robocop sort of storms in and starts shooting everyone because he's impervious to bullets. And then he's sort of arresting Boudica by throwing him through like 20 panes of glass. Giving Boudica like facial scars for the rest of the movie.
You remember like in that scene Robocop's like pulling out all these showboating shots, like no looks and stuff like that. Alex Murphy's personality, or is it Robocop?
Interesting question. I think it's Alex. I think that's Alex coming through. I think that's Alex's style. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think of that.
Where Clarence dips his fingers in that.
Oh yeah,
wine, and he like sniffs.
I forgot to mention that. Was so weird.
And then he goes back and picks up his wine and starts drinking it straight away.
That was weird. Like this power play. Well, I don't care if you put your fingers in like my wine. I'm still going to drink it. Like, and then as Robocop's beating up Boudica sort of gives up Dick Jones. Tries to throw Dick Jones under the bus. But back at the precinct, we learned that the police union is about to go on strike. That seems inevitable at this point. But then Robocop brings Boddicker into the precinct and tells the commanding officer to like book him, and then Boddicker like spits blood on the paperwork. It's really disgusting.
Man, he's so nasty.
Like he spits
Big,
blood on Robocop as well.
Yeah. He spits a few times in the movie, actually.
Yeah.
Later on, he
Like,
spits again.
Reveals his disgusting nature. And then Dick Jones assures Boddicker that he'll be out in 24 hours, not to worry about it. So, but then Robocop realizes that Dick Jones is the real bad guy behind everything, and so he goes up to OCP to try to arrest Dick Jones. But Directive 4 kicks in, and his programming won't allow it. And so he sort of has a malfunction.
It's interesting how, if there was like an online network, or if Robocop was online, like he could have uploaded the footage or the confession.
Yeah, good
that
point. Yeah,
Dick Jones is working with Clarence, and they got some shady thing going on. So it's interesting how the technology at the time, there's no internet, which would have already implicated Dick.
Yeah, so the concept of like instantaneous sharing of information wasn't around back then, which is sort of why he needs that data transfer spike in his hand. But yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, because he would just like share it to millions of people basically
Well, he could have
immediately.
shared it after he arrested Clarence, but I think he just, like, who would he report to though? But he's
That's
like
true,
his own boss, I guess. So he doesn't report to anybody.
Because OCP is like the boss of everything. So
yeah,
so it's like, what are you going to do? Like, that's why it's sort of fascistic. It's like a fascist regime. It's like no one's going to do anything about who's in charge because there's no one above them. There's no checks and balances in place. So Dick brings out Ed 209. So we have this confrontation between Ed 209 and Robocop, which is really awesome. So Ed 209 is like much bigger than Robocop, much heavier, more firepower, and so he sort of beats up Robocop, and it's about to shoot his head off, but then Robocop like moves his gun arm, and then he shoots off the other gun arm of Ed 209, which is really cool. So then Ed 209 only has like one arm. But it also has missiles. Ed 209 has missiles. So it's definitely like a military grade design. And the Robocop like runs away and intelligently goes down the stairs because guess what Ed 209 can't do? That's right. He can't go down the stairs. Yeah, it's like a screaming baby.
Like you mentioned before, he makes these animal noise. Like he's squealing like a pig there. He's like pulling.
Yeah, it's like growling as he was like trying to get down the stairs. It's squealing like a pig when he like falls over. That's hilarious.
It's a funny sound choice that they went for.
But it reminds me of the Boston Dynamic robots. If you've seen them, for anyone watching, if you want to see some terrifying vision of the future, check out what Boston Dynamic is doing with their AI robots. So that's sort of some interesting, although terrifying, technology in terms of their robots, what their robots can do. Like They sort of move like animals. They can carry like guns on their backs and eat like organic flesh to sustain them. So, no, where am I up to? Okay, so when Robocop comes out of the OCP building, all the cops are like waiting for him, and then they start shooting him because they think he's the bad guy. And they light him up. Like he takes a lot of ammo, a lot of damage in that moment, in that scene. Like a shocking amount of ammo. And sort of just has to like crawl away. And he's rescued by his partner Lewis. And then we get a hilarious commercial for the 6000 SUX, where it's basically just this rubber dinosaur in the city. This is the worst commercial of all time for this terrible car, the 6000 SUX. So, so Bodika actually has the 6000 SUX. If you notice, it's got this 6000 on the front.
Yeah, I think they get it later after they kind of.
Yeah, that's true. They get it later, don't they? Yeah, they didn't get it earlier. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. And then we get a news report of like a space laser, like malfunctioning and shooting lasers into Santa Barbara, like killing tons of people.
And so 2 ex-US presidents as well, like killed.
US presidents.
Yeah.
And then Bodika comes down to OCP to see his best friend Dick Jones. Then he disgustingly like starts hitting on the secretary, like sticks his gum like on her nameplate, like just with his like facial scars. It's like the most disgusting character of all time. Like you see the spitting on, putting his gum on people. So Dick and Bodika have a bit of an argument. Because Dick tells him to kill Robocop, and Bodika's like, hell no. And then Dick convinces him, because Dick reminds him that when they start building Delta City, there's going to be like millions of people there, and it'll be a perfect place for people like Bodika to run a criminal organization, which I assume would also include drug trafficking, human trafficking, like any sort of criminal activity you can imagine. And so Bodika is sort of excited by that prospect. And so then he says, "Oh, we're going to need weapons or something." And then Dick Jones says, "We practically are the military." Which sort of speaks to what I was saying before, that OCP has sort of taken over key industries within society, including the military industrial complex, which is actually big business these days as well, especially with the US government. And so Murphy and Lewis sort of escaped to like an abandoned steel mill. I think it's the same factory as before.
I think so, yeah, it is.
Yeah, and they're sort of tending to Murphy's wounds. And it's official, the police strike is on. But then we get the unmasking.
You may not like what you're going to see.
So to me, that scene is sort of the ultimate melding of human and machine, where we sort of see the humanity behind the cybernetic sort of components of RoboCop. Sort of reminded of who he is, who he used to be, but who he will never be again. So in a way, it's sort of this tragic moment for the character. But I think it's also a moment of transformation for Murphy as well. Like there's more of a reassuredness of who he is now, even though he's sort of a shadow of his former self, especially with the fact that his wife sort of moved away with his kid. And as Lewis says, she sort of started over again, which implies that she's sort of remarried and moved on. So, like, what was your reaction to seeing Murphy's face in that way for the first time?
Oh, as a kid, it kind of freaked me out a bit. Kind of messed up seeing like his face and all of this machinery, kind of like Darth Vader, I guess.
Oh yeah,
when you see him unmasked, and it's very similar.
That's true. I didn't think of that. I didn't make the connection to Darth Vader, but you're right. It's exactly the same. Sort of this melding of man and machine. But I think they did a good job in terms of the prosthetics or the special effects for that scene.
Oh yeah.
In terms of because it looks a bit weird the way his skin is sort of like stretched over the machinery, but that's sort of what it would actually look like if you did sort of have human organic tissue melding with metal components or whatever. So yeah, it's kind of horrific in a way, but sort of the ultimate representation of sort of the transhumanism theme that sort of pervades throughout the film. But if the police are striking, you know what happens next. That's right, the criminals are running the city. And there's no bigger criminals than the Goon Squad. And since it's the 80s, you can call them the Goonies. Bodica's Goonies. They're running wild all over Detroit. Also, Emil, the Toxic Avenger, he has a bit of time to watch his favorite TV show.
You see what he's drinking as well.
What was he drinking?
Drinking Jack Daniels.
Why is he drinking Jack? Oh, jeez. Of course he is drinking Jack Daniels.
In the bottle.
Either that or Bud Light. Like Bud Light, Miller Light, whatever. Okay, so the sort of Okay, so Bodica like shows up with his 600 SUX. And like the black guy has a 600 SUX as well. But then Bodica also has some new military grade weaponry. And he calls it the assault cannon. So it sort of reminds me of like the I'm blanking on it now. The 50 cal sniper rifle.
But twice as long. It looks very similar.
Yeah, Barrett 50 cal.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of like the Barrett 50 cal. Very, very similar to that. Yeah, this
like for a really powerful gun, it's got had no recoil.
Yeah,
it's like you'd think that you get blown off your feet after you pull the trigger. Yeah, that looks just like that, but twice the size of that.
But they were holding it. They weren't even mounting it. Like you would mount the Barrett 50 cal because of the kickback. But yeah, you're right. They were just like holding it like a assault rifle.
No recoil at all. Oh, that was just hip firing.
Yeah, they were hip firing. The assault cannon. He calls it the assault cannon.
The Cobra assault cannon.
Cobra assault, yeah. Assault cannon. Yeah, since I'm playing Warzone, I'm paying more attention to different weaponry, but I think the AX-50 is sort of similar to the Barrett, because you can just like carry it around and because it shoots 50 cal. And what's the other one? Another gun shoots 50 cal. It's a light machine gun. Can't believe I'm blanking. So the goons sort of spend a bit of time playing with their new guns, blowing stuff up, like literally blowing things up.
State of the art, bang bang.
Then Bodika also has a tracker for Robocop, so he knows exactly where he is in the steel mill. And then we get a nice little scene where Lewis helps Robocop like calibrate his targeting system because it's like messed up. And then the goons arrive at the steel mill. So it's time for Robocop to lock and load and face the music once and for all. And then one of my favorite scenes of all time, Bodika tells Emil to drive the van, and he's going to wish that he never did. Let's put it that way. But then before that, like Robocop like sneaks up on him and like says something instead of just shooting them. Like he gets them to like turn around so he can see him, and then like he shoots the black guy but no one else. So he shoots like one guy instead of shooting all of them. But that was pretty inefficient from Robocop's perspective because they just like shoot back and then he has to run away. But I guess if he killed them all, the movie would be finished. But then we get the wonderful Toxic Avenger scene, which still sort of makes me laugh to this day. Yeah. It's just like Leon's face. Like, Leon's face when like when the Toxic Avenger like tries to grab him. It's so funny.
Get off me, man. Yeah, that was messed up. I remember impersonating him when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that scene
sound.
was hilarious. Like how? Melting.
Like when he holds his hand up, like his thumb skin is like off.
Yeah, his bone is like sticking out. Yeah, that was messed up. He kind of deserved it. Yeah, he kind of deserved that. He's a pretty bad guy.
Yeah, they're all pretty bad guys. Okay, what's next? Okay, so Bodika like smashes through the Toxic Avenger and sort of explodes in this red mist, as we saw, which makes Bodika sort of lose control of his car. So he like crashes. So Lewis thinks she has a dead guy in the car, but then Bodika like gets out and like blows her away. Like he gets a lot of bullets into her, so she's pretty messed up at that stage.
Yeah.
But then we get the final confrontation between Robocop and Bodika. Robocop's like, no, I'm not going to arrest you. So Bodika is like worried, but then, but not to worry because Leon, he's got the steel. He's in like this steel piece of, I don't know what kind of equipment that is, like the steel picker upper.
Yeah, he's in a crane and he drops the steel beams.
The crane, yeah.
and more
It's called a
stuff.
crane. Yeah. Steel. It's called a
Been
steel
around
picker
for
upper. He drops like a bunch of steel on Robocop.
technical seen Commando TV.
um. Oh god. And then when he drops the steel on Robocop, Lewis like blows him away with like the assault cannon.
Yeah, they're like celebrating. I got him.
Yeah. And she's like
I
prone.
got him, Clarence. Yeah, she's like crawling to the Cobra assault
Yeah,
cannon.
She's prone like people
Yeah.
in Warzone. I mean, that's how you would shoot a 50 cal. You'd be prone. And then but we get a really cool scene where Boudica like sticks a steel spike into Robocop's chest, and Robocop's like, ooh. It's like really weird like facial expression. But yeah, it's like I think it's really interesting that Robocop took a lot of damage in this movie. Like really, really bad damage. Like as the robot. Like it wasn't this invincible. Like in a way he was invincible, but he still took a lot of hits. Like really bad injuries and stuff. But then he sticks his own USB spike into Boudica's neck. And that was another really gory scene.
Yeah,
he sticks the spike in, and the blood like sprays on it on Robocop.
Yeah, this big blob of blood just lands in his chest.
Blob of blood just like falls out. And Lewis says, "Oh, I'm a mess," or whatever, and the Robocop says, "Oh, they can fix you. They can fix anything or something like that. They can make it better or something." So Robocop comes back to the OCP headquarters for a final time. But then 209's back. Someone took him out of the stairwell. He's like the security guard now. He's outside. Excuse me, sir. You don't have. Do you have a special permit to come into OCP? Like he's basically just a security guard outside of the building, checking for ID. But then, of course, Robocop picked up an assault cannon and sort of blows the top half of Ed 209 away. Just blows off the top half.
I like how his legs take a few steps and like Robocop like walks and notices him and then just continues walking again when he falls over. That was a cool scene.
Yeah. It sort of represents how useless the Ed 209 model was. Like after all that like showboating and money pumped into it, like it could be taken out pretty easily. Like it's not very mobile. Like it doesn't have much of a defensive capability.
No, I assume, but I don't think anything's going to survive that Cobra assault cannon blast, though.
No, for sure.
Robocop wouldn't survive it.
Yeah, I suppose Ed 209 was sort of designed more for intimidation than anything else, like any sort of complex, military unit.
Or walking up and down the stairs.
Yeah, the scaring bad guys. So Robocop storms into the board meeting while Dick Jones is sort of making a speech, like his victory speech. And then he sort of sticks his USB spike into the computer system, and it sort of shows him the evidence that Dick Jones admits to murdering Bob Morton, which is, so Dick Jones is sort of caught red-handed, guilty of corporate espionage and murder. And then in desperation, Dick takes the old man hostage. But then intelligently, the old man fires Dick, and so that erases the Directive 4. And so Robocop can actually shoot Dick through the window. Okay, so finally eliminating the main villain of the film, Dick Jones, R.I.P.
I feel like the main confrontation was with Clarence and his goons, and this was just like the just finishing up loose ends.
Yeah,
I
loose
guess.
ends. Yeah, but I say that he's the main villain because Dick Jones and OCP is behind everything.
Yeah,
they're behind
he's
everything that
definitely
happens. Basically,
the mastermind.
The mastermind, yeah. The main. He's like Palpatine. If we're going to use more Star Wars analogies, and then Darth Vader's like Buttercup. Murphy, I am your father. And then the old man asks Robocop what his name is. What's your name, young man? And then
What's your name, son?
Oh, what's your name, son? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And he says Murphy, and then credits roll, which is sort of
I like the ending. I liked how it was just a sudden ending. That's why I feel like the main climax was the Clarence fight, and this was like the credits rolling is this little tying up of loose ends, and then end of the movie.
Sort of similar to Kickboxer from last time, where he sort of defeats Tong Po and then credits roll. You know, no messing about. Hour 43 and we're done. You know, no unnecessary scenes or dialogue or exposition throughout the movie. So yeah, that's that's it. That's wraps. That's and then we get the theme music, of course, the iconic, one of a kind theme music for Robocop. Another great 80s action movie. But like I said at the start, it's more than just action. It's like drama. It's humanity. It's like psychological. It's science fiction. Deals with a lot of interesting and overarching themes, as I spoke of before. And is a lot deeper than you may think, which sort of characteristic with a lot of the movies that we've talked about so far. From the 80s, they're a lot deeper in terms of the characterization, the writing, and the themes than people may think. You know, that's why we talk about them for more than 90 minutes at a time. So, yeah. Any final thoughts on the RoboCop from 1987?
I think hats off to Peter Weller. I thought he impersonated the robot really well. Like his interpretation of a robot, his impersonation, like his movement, mannerisms, and speech as well as. I think he really embodied being a machine. I thought it was really cool.
I'm glad you mentioned Peter Weller because he became, for me, he became associated with RoboCop. It's like sometimes you get those characters that play a certain character and then they're always that person, you know. Like they're that character forever. And to me, it's like Peter Weller and RoboCop. And then also someone like Robert Patrick, who played T-1000 as well. Like whenever I saw him in other roles, I just saw like the Terminator, you know.
Yeah.
And there's sort of these interesting character actors with these unique faces and mannerisms. They play like an android or a robot or some sort of weird character so well.
It's iconic roles that leaves an impression, I guess.
Yeah, it's so unique. It's different to anything else. It sort of has this emotional resonance in terms of both like the T-1000 from Terminator. Like there's a pretty terrifying character in certain respects. But in terms of RoboCop, like Peter Weller's performance was very, like if I say it's robotic, it sounds like it's a criticism, but like even when he was like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like just the way he talks or the way he moves his head. It's sort of almost it matches like that of it sort of fits with a robotic type of style, I think. But it's not like it makes him a bad actor. It just matches that style of movement, I think.
Yeah, or it's his acting impersonation of how he was going to portray the character, and I think he just hit it like nail on the head, and he performed it really well.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, Robocop, another interesting movie that we've discussed that involves, really interesting characters, interesting sort of directorial choices, and sort of expert writing. It sort of makes the movie far more interesting and deep than one may expect, as I keep saying. I keep saying that each week, but it's true. Okay, so I think we can wrap it there. That was Robocop 1987. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Join us next time. I don't know what we're gonna talk about next, but it's gonna be fire, that's for sure. I can never do this properly. Anyway, cheers to you all.
Cheers.
Use my left hand.
Latest.
Laters.